It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Chicka chicka boom boom. It's a Leo Be the Lion show. Boom boom. Gonna tell you what you need to know. Boom boom. Now here comes your boy Leo. Hey everybody, it's your boy Leo Be the Lion coming to you live from Respectable Street here on Clematis and in what beautiful West Palm Beach. As always, you can follow me on Twitter and IG at Leo Be the Lion Show. And you can search for me on YouTube at Leo Be the Lion Show. I was able to change that my handle on YouTube, so now you don't have to worry what platform it is. You can find me at Leo Be the Lion Show, and we can connect. I have a jam-packed show for you today. I got a ton of things that we're going to talk about. We have not only just sports today, but I'm also going to be talking about the financial markets and some weekend activities that was recently went down. I'll be giving you an NBA update. It's about the halfway point of the NBA season. Then we'll get into the NFL Divisional Round. We had 4 games to decide who was going to the AFC and NFC championship, respectively. And then we'll get into the NFL championship round, which is the Final Four for the NFL. After that, we'll talk about the hashtag 5-pack of picks. I'll give you my recap. Just a quick preview. I'm 11 games over 500 for the season, so if you're interested in making some money, you can really listen to my picks, and we can make some money together. And then we'll be getting into my hashtag words of encouragement segment. What I wanted to let you know is that you can listen to my show live every Monday from 5 to 6 in your car, at home, on the radio. If you go to subcultureradio.com and click on the live listen link, you can listen there. I'm also, if you can't catch that, then you can look me up on YouTube at Leo Be the Lion Show and see all of my videos and all of my shows in full-length form, or I break it down for you by segment and give you the most pertinent segments on each video. Also, if you're short on time and you just want to see one of the segments, if you go to the full episodes, you'll be able to see just the timestamps for each chapter, and every time I switch subjects, I put a timestamp on there. So if you say, oh, this week I just want to listen to the financial markets portion, see what's happening on the markets this week, you can go to that on the timestamp. Or if you're only interested in my hashtag 5-pack of picks, soon to be world famous, you can just go to that segment and see what it's been talking about. And the best of all is to keep me honest, and you know Leo Donis got to keep it honest over here. Leo will keep all the archived videos on YouTube. I don't delete anything. So you could look next year, you could see what happened last year and make sure I'm still telling the truth. Now let's get into it. Before we get into anything with the markets or sports, let's talk about my weekend update. I had a great weekend this weekend, and it all started with the South Florida Fair. I was able to catch the South Florida Fair and have a wonderful weekend at the South Florida Fair, but also I was able to notice some trends that's happening with the fair, so I wanted to get into that really quickly about the fair rides, the foods, and the vendors. So there's been some talk lately that the fair might be charging too much money for their square footage or for their rent that they charge. But if we're looking at the numbers, right now the South Florida Fair charges $110 per square foot for food, beverage, and attractions, and then for all others, $85 a square foot. So an example, if you have a 500 square foot tent in the fair, or a total of 500 square feet, that would be $55,000. Now, the reason why I say that seems like a lot of money for a 2-week thing. Like, you're a vendor, you got $55,000, and you're dropping that. But the amount of vendors that are at the South Florida Fair shows that those vendors are making money. And as of 2020, I went on the South Florida Fair website and was able to pull up their financials. And as of 2020, the South Florida Fair revenue, now this is just talking about the nonprofit that is the South Florida Fair's organization. It's not talking about the other like vendors that come and they're in the expo center, or vendors that are outside. It's just talking about what the fair owns. So as of 2020, the fair revenue was $16 million, with a net income about 500,000. And they're a nonprofit, so that income would be going back into the business. And that is just for the South Florida Fairgrounds business as itself. And that is 2020. And think about that. That was right before the pandemic hit. So people were going to the fair. And then also in that year, in the following year, they had the fair in May. Now, I just think, and I believe going forward, the fair is going to see some exorbitant increases in their revenue. Because if you look at it, they're charging rent. There's expected to be over 500,000 visitors. And just to prove to you how packed the fair was, if you see the Belvedere entrance off of Southern, or if you go to, the entrance to the fair off of Southern Boulevard, the entrance was backed up past the turnpike almost. So that is almost over a mile backed up, with 2 lanes that were merging into one turning lane, and the police had to block off the intersection so that they can control the traffic for all the people trying to get into the fair. And this wasn't just once a day. Say the fair opens at 10, you can kind of get to the fair early if you get there right around 10, 11. But once you start getting to noon, 1 o'clock, that's when the traffic really backs up for miles and miles. And for all that demand, and for them charging $10 for parking, regular parking, and $20 for VIP parking, they are probably making a ton of revenue off of the parking alone, because also in the past they didn't charge parking. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because I think the numbers are going to explode this year for the revenue for not only just the South Florida Fair business itself, but also for all the vendors. When you look at the stock market, there's ways that you can look at it, or look at businesses, and there's ways that you could see if they're doing well, and you can kind of estimate. And I've alluded to it before, where if you see a lot of new Fords on the market after tax time, or you see a lot of cars after tax time, you should look at stocks that are investing in cars. So if you look at the South Florida Fair and you see it's more jam-packed than you can ever remember, that would almost kind of tip you off to say that they're probably gonna make more revenue than they ever have before. There's probably people coming from multiple counties away to come to the South Florida Fair. And I just believe that people are spending money regardless of the inflationary environment that we're in. Yeah, the Fed says that we are dealing with 7.1 or 6.1 inflation right now since the last month. But I believe regardless of that, and sometimes the economy doesn't make sense of what the market is doing. So regardless of the inflationary pressures and people being tight on things like gas and other fixed costs, like you got to get gas, you got to pay the rent is up. But besides that, regardless of that, the South Florida Fair parking situation, the cars being backed up every afternoon and evening, because people like to go to the fair when the sun goes down. And it doesn't make sense to me, because they got rid of Midnight Magic, or they used to call it Midnight Madness, and that was really a moneymaker, but I guess it wasn't safe. But to me, I just don't understand the people that go to the fair from 6 to 10, because you're not really getting your money's worth if you're only there for 4 hours and you have to wait like 30 minutes to get on a ride. Or yeah, maybe you just want to get your bloomin' onion or your rib fix or whatever, and do the food. I love the food at the fair, so I'm not even going to judge you for that. But the fair, I believe, is going to break the record attendance this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see over $20 million in revenue, and it's a good sign for the Florida economy. But a bad decision for some vendors that decided to forego the South Florida Fair. I was browsing on Facebook, and I saw that Porky's Barbecue, one of the most popular barbecue places that always attends the fair, decided to not attend the fair this year because of the price of the rent. And they couldn't agree with the price of the rent with the South Florida Fair organization. And there were so many people, I only go to the fair for Porky's. I only go to the fair for Porky's. I'm not going anymore. Well, I can tell you, probably for every person that said not going anymore, there's at least 3 cars that have gone to the fair. So your vote got canceled out, and there's more people coming to the fair. So Porky's, you should have realized the writing on the wall that the fair is just expanding every year. Yeah, it might have charged you $65,000 to run the vendor, but think about how much money that you would make in profit for your business. I think it was a bad decision to not go and not have the continuity from year to year. A business continuity can sometimes get you goodwill with the public. Like if you know how a McDonald's hamburger is going to taste every time, if you're in the mood for a hamburger and you want a McDonald's hamburger, you know you're going to be satisfied because you know how it's going to taste. So that's the continuity that people look for in businesses. So when Porky's just decides one year to pull out and they'll come back next year, I bet their business will probably hurt a little bit. So, like I said, it's a good thing for the Palm Beach County economy to have the South Florida Fair back and in full swing and without any restrictions. This year's theme is Dynamite, and it was fun taking my son to see all the dinosaurs and to see all the attractions. We got the wristbands. Shout out to Publix for doing the prepay, and shout out to my buddy for having the prepaid wristbands that we were able to get. And it was a great experience going to the fair. Now from the fair to another activity that happened this past weekend, in which was my girlfriend and I went to City Cellar in Rosemary Square. And I think I might add this to my show, is that I might do a weekly restaurant thing. Not like, other shows on Subculture Radio. Check out our full lineup, subcultureradio.com. But just to say, if I went to a place and if I had a good experience, I'll share it. If I went to a place I had a bad experience, I'll share it. So this on Sunday, we had reservations, my girlfriend and I, at City Cellar. It's a popular restaurant in Rosemary Square, formerly City Place. And I can't say enough good things about our server, Zante. I apologize because I thought his name was Dante, but then when we got the receipt, his name was Zante with a Z. And he was so knowledgeable and courteous from the word go. We were joking, laughing, we're having a good time. From the word go, he sat us down, was attentive, took care of business, and really offered some suggestions that we ended up following through with. So I appreciate Zante with the customer service. Good job. And the food was delicious. I would recommend it again. I went to City Cellar last night, and we got some charcuterie boards. Got some Wagyu beef salami. That was pretty good. And I had some aged Gouda. It was pretty Gouda. And it was a good night. It was an overall good night at City Cellar. So now switching from local things, let's go talk about what the stock market is doing this week and what to expect. So today we saw on Monday, there was no holiday or anything, so the market was open. The market is open from 9:30 to 4. On Monday through Friday for the U.S. markets, and I expect the market to rise this week. There is a lot of earnings calls happening. A lot of company earnings are being reported, as well as a lot of economic indicators, and the economic calendar is full this week. So when you look at today, I'm going to go just Monday through Friday about what you can expect on the stock market this week, because today, the Nasdaq gained about 2%. The S&P was up, but the S&P was up because of the report that came out today. The leading indicators report. It was expected to be negative 0.7%. Last month it was negative 1.1%, but it actually came in at negative 1%. So Leo, be the line. What does that mean about leading indicators report? Like what should that tell me about my money in the stock market? Well, what it tells you is that a leading indicator is basically like what happens before the market drops, or what causes, or what indicators can you see 3 to 6 months ahead before economic downturns or before economic upswings. So say, for instance, I'll give you an example of a leading indicator. A leading indicator for the market or for the economy is the stock market. So if you see the stock market dipping into a recession for 2 straight quarters, chances are the overall economy is going to do that, but in about 3 to 6 months later. So that's what a leading indicator today is. And so it said that in the leading indicator reported that it was actually down 1%. And that shows that the analysts believe that, according to this report, that the market will be down, that we might be facing a recession towards the springtime, towards the summertime. But I'm a little bit more optimistic because they don't believe in as much of the Fed's ability to tamper down the inflation. Inflation has run rampant for about a year and a half with gas prices, everything. We're talking about eggs. I've seen so many memes about eggs, man. It's just like, come on, dog. Can we come up with some new material over here? Like, yeah, we get it. Eggs are expensive. Okay, cool. Cool beans. So when we talk about the leading indicators report, it was down. The majority of the analysts believe that there is a recession coming, but I don't believe so. I think that with the interest rates hiking, there is always a point that you can overheat the economy by raising interest rates too fast and causing inflation will go down, but the economy will stagnate. It's almost like if you have an overheated car, you can't drive the car once it's overheated because it's just smoking. So if you raise rates too quickly and the economy overheats, inflation will drop, but more people will lose their jobs. More people will not be able to have savings. More people's credit cards interest rates will go up and cause people to have higher levels of debt. More people will not be able to afford a home, things like that. So the Fed has to be careful about how they raise interest rates. And the Fed's only tools that they have to help the economy or to hurt the economy, the only tools that they have is they can raise or lower interest rates, or they can increase or decrease the money supply. So right now the Fed is working on raising the interest rates to balance out this inflationary economy. On Tuesday, we have the S&P Manufacturers Purchasing Managers Index, and what that shows is they take a basket of businesses from all over nationally, and they speak to those businesses that are part of the S&P 500, those manufacturing businesses, and they speak to the managers and ask them about, how have your inputs been? Have your inputs been increasing? Does it cost you more to produce your product now? Is your fixed costs, are your variable costs rising because you have now more inflation? And does it cost you more to borrow out of your accounts payable and things like that? So if you are sitting there, you would want the manufacturer's PMI to be reduced. But in my opinion, and I firmly believe that tomorrow we'll see the S&P manufacturer's PMI be greater than the anticipated number. I believe that the costs are going up for businesses and have been up for about 6 months' time. And seeing that, you can see that all the prices have gone up around you. Where, like I did mention, it does cost more for eggs. It costs more for gas. It costs more for clothes. It costs more for a lot of baskets of goods. Then after Tuesday's manufacturing report, there's nothing on Wednesday, but expect usually when there's nothing on the economic calendar, expect earnings calls to occur. You can see that usually they kick it off. It's almost kicked off alphabetically, so we have a lot of like Alcoa, and they're an aluminum company. You have different companies that start with A that are probably going to be going off soon for earnings calls. On Thursday, we have the jobless claims, and that's basically the unemployed report. The jobless claims report basically shows how many people have filed for unemployment or filed for employment protection over the past month. And what that's actually expected to decrease. The economy is running relatively hot right now. It's not overheating, but it's running relatively hot right now because those who have a job are employed, obviously. But those who don't have a job, if you're not actively searching for a job And when they do the report and they say, "Oh, are you actively searching for a job?" and you say yes, then they count you in the unemployment report. But if you're not actively searching for a job, say you're retired, or say you have your own side business thing, and they're like, "Are you actively searching for a job?" and you say no, you're not included in the unemployment report. So just a little bit of color just to give you so you can kind of understand the unemployment report. I expect the jobless claims to decrease from last month. There's a lot of open available jobs. It's just the question of whether the wages are enough. When you look at any job website, there's myriad of jobs available. I work for Palm Beach County. I'm a financial analyst, a head financial analyst for the fixed assets division. And right now, within Palm Beach County, we have at least 50 jobs available, ranging from the entry level to director jobs. So there are jobs out there. It's just the question of, are people actively searching for employment, or are they not? Because if they're not going to be included in unemployment numbers. And I firmly believe that unemployment can be deceiving, especially in this type of market where things are expensive. A lot of people might not be looking for a job. They might be happy, where similar to the unemployment spike during Corona, during the pandemic we had, where people were happily and rightfully so, they said it would cost more to go look for a job than to get unemployment benefits. So they were happily accepting unemployment instead of having the job. So, but for right now, I do expect the jobless claims to be reduced this month from last month. December is usually kind of a big hiring time for retail environment, for service industry, because of the holidays. So I expect maybe they were in a hiring mode November, December to reduce those jobless claims. Then after that, on Friday, we have two important metrics and two important indicators for the economy, and that is the consumer spending report and the the consumer spending report and the pending home sales. So first of all, with the consumer spending report, this takes a look about, it's kind of self-explanatory, but it does take a look about how consumers are spending their dollars. Are consumer debt levels rising? Are consumers trying to save more, or are consumers trying to rev up the economy and basically having a spender mentality and trying to consume in the economy? This is very important because you see in times of recession that consumers' borrowing abilities and consumers' credit spending can, right before a recession, the credit spending usually spikes because they're not making as much money. The economy's slowing down, so you have to use more credit and go into debt a little bit further, and that can be exacerbated if we fall into a recession. But I believe that consumer spending is up. Like I alluded to with the South Florida Fair, the amount of traffic that I saw at the South Florida Fair, being backed up on Southern for miles, being at the fair, seeing how crowded the lines were, seeing how crowded the food lines were, seeing how crowded just walking through the fair, and it seemed more crowded than usual. I believe that the economy, especially in the South Florida area, is booming right now. We have consumer spending. I'm looking out. Leo Be the Lion Show. I record live from 5 to 6 here at Respectable Street, and I see tons of people walking around on Clematis. I see people at Kapow and stuff, and eating and just enjoying life. I see a lot of nice cars running around, so people are spending their money. So I do expect the consumer spending report to really increase and to show an indicator that consumers are not saving as much because they'd rather spend this money now that because of interest rates being so high. Then talking about pending home sales. This is really important because with the higher interest rates, you would expect home sales to be reduced. When we were having record low interest rates under 3.25, 3.5, you'd be more willing to borrow money as a 30-year fixed rate if you're doing 3.5% than if you're borrowing at 7%, 7.1%. And that actually cuts your ability to borrow almost in half. If it's double the interest rate, Say you could only get approved for a $200,000 property with a 3.5 interest rate. When it comes down to if it's a 7-point interest rate, you could probably only get approved for $100,000 in your property. So it's very important to pay attention to the interest rates if you're looking for a house. And when we're talking about pending home sales, those are homes that are under contract. And now that we've seen the rates rise and the investment isn't as such a good for speculative investment in real estate, we've seen cash deals be reduced, and now more first-time home buyers are entering the market. But the only thing that stinks about that is that the interest rates are higher, so it's harder for those first-time home buyers to get into their homes. And prices are still high from the pandemic time. When you have a one-room apartment selling for $180,000, $200,000, or actually no, I actually know of an apartment right now. It's my girlfriend's apartment. They're trying to say that it's worth $350,000. Don't tell her landlord that, because I don't want her to get kicked out and tell her to sell that thing. But her landlord probably bought that thing in like 2010 for like $60,000. So do you see how much? There's no way on God's green earth that a one-room apartment that's like under 1,000 square foot should ever go for $353,000. So let's just put it out there. The market for real estate is really high in South Florida. It's frustrating because those who grew up feel kind of like, I feel kind of like I missed the boat. But what could I do when you don't have money? If you're a broke college student or if you're a broke high school student, you couldn't say, "Oh, I'm gonna buy these 30 apartments for $20,000 each," like the people at Wells Fargo did, or the early investors in 2010, 2011 did. We just missed out on that. So we got to wait for the market to go down. But when it comes to pending home sales, I think that those are going to be lower for this report, because normally in the wintertime, there's not as many home sales going on as the summertime. Summertime's a little bit hotter when it comes to the real estate market. Now, after talking about the financial markets and the reports that you could expect out this week, we're going to get into an NBA update. The NBA update, I think, is cool. I'm going to be letting you know it's about a little more than halfway through the season. Most teams have played about 45, 46 games. And let's just take a look about how the season is shaping up so far. We have a lot of teams jockeying for playoff position. The Heat aren't doing as well as they hoped. They're kind of underachieving. Well, and it's not only they're underachieving, but it is because the injuries that the Heat have experienced. Bam missed some time. Bam Adebayo. Kyle Lowry missed some time. Tyler Hero missed some time with a groin injury. But let's take a look at the East first. From 1 to 8, we have Boston Celtics, Philadelphia 76ers, Milwaukee Bucks, Brooklyn Nets, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I like to say Cavaliers instead of Cavaliers. The Miami Heat, the New York Knicks, and the Atlanta Hawks. Now, you see the Heat are at number 6. They have some room to jockey for position. I hope that they get a home playoff series and lock in at least the 4 seed. But they would have to upend the Nets, who are playing very good basketball right now with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant healthy. They'll be able to they might even be able to move up, because they've looked, actually, the other teams in front of them, the Bucks, look kind of like they have a couple holes in their armor right now. Philly looks like world beaters. They're really getting hot at the right time, with Joel Embiid being an MVP candidate and James Harden flashing back to his Houston days when he was one of the best on-ball dribblers, and he could create his own shot and get others involved, and at any given night probably give you a 30-point triple-double. Boston is the class of the East right now, the number 1 seed. They are getting it done. They have a lot of good players. Al Horford, the ageless wonder, he was in college. I'm 35, so Al Horford has to be at least 37, 38. And he is still playing like he is a 28-year-old. So shout out to Al Horford to do that. He went to University of Florida and won 2 national championships with Joakim Noah and Corey Brewer and them. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the Magic are probably out of it unless they can get into the play-in tournament and lock up the 10th seed. But the Magic just aren't consistent enough for me. Yeah, they have Pablo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and they've been coming along, but they're such a young team. I hope with the addition of Jonathan Isaac, who tore his ACL 2 years ago, he has not played in any basketball for 2 years, and tonight he is available to be in the lineup for the Orlando Magic. So let's go Magic. Let's turn the season around before we get to the All-Star break and have a chance to get into the play-in tournament by getting one of the top 10 seeds. The Heat, on the other hand, are a NBA Finals contender. They can get to the NBA Finals but if they are fully healthy. That's the key for the Heat, in my opinion. If the Heat are fully healthy, they can make a run to the NBA Finals because when it comes down to it, they match up well with Boston. They have Bam guarding Al Horford. They have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Well, Jimmy Butler can guard one of those guys. And then we have the other on-ball defenders that can take care of business because the Heat's calling card is defense, by the way. Now, when you look at one of those sneaky teams that, besides the Heat in the East, that might make some noise, I really think Philly is trying to get the job done before their process window opens. So those of you that don't know, when Joel Embiid was drafted, he was nicknamed the Process because they said this is the whole reason why the 76ers tanked, so they get Joel Embiid and they trust the process. And their whole theme was, we're going to trust the process to get us to an NBA Finals and take us over the hump and get us over the hump to win an NBA championship. Well, so far, the farthest Philly has gotten was with Jimmy Butler into the Eastern Conference Finals against the Toronto Raptors. However, it was a last-second buzzer-beating shot by Kawhi Leonard to send the Sixers home and send the Raptors to the NBA Finals, where the Raptors were able to beat the vaunted Warriors in the NBA Finals and get Toronto a championship. Now, I think if I had to pick right now, the Eastern Conference Finals matchup is going to be Boston versus the Nets. I think the Bucks and Philadelphia won't be able to stay healthy, and I think Boston and Brooklyn will have an epic battle if they meet in the finals. It just depends where the seeding shakes out. But I'd love to see Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving versus Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I think that would be a really cool matchup. But I do give the edge to KD and Kyrie just because they have the championship pedigree and they're a little bit older than the Boston Celtics duo of Tatum and Brown. This is the Leo B. the Lion Show. I come to you every Monday live from 5 to 6 here at Subculture Radio and Radio Respects on Clematis. And you can follow me on YouTube. I post my videos on YouTube after the fact and look for the segments at Leo B. the Lion Show. I talk about sports and business with a South Florida flavor. I just got done talking about what you can expect on the stock market this week and the earnings reports. And now we're getting into the NBA halfway season mark. So with this NBA update, we looked at the East. Now let's take a look about how the West is shaping out. The 1 through 8 seed for the West is as follows: the Denver Nuggets, the Memphis Grizzlies, the surprise of the year, in my opinion, Sacramento Kings, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Dallas Mavericks, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Phoenix Suns, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, there's two historic franchises that are missing from those 1 through 8. Can you guess who it is? Well, I'll tell you. It is the Lakers, who are currently the 12th seed at 22 and 25 in the West, and the Warriors, who are currently the 10th seed. They'll be making it into the playoff. The reason why the Warriors are in the 10th seed right now is because Steph Curry has missed some time this year, and the Warriors seem to be a totally different team on the road. They started the season 3-17 on the road, and almost the opposite at home, basically 17-3 almost at home. So the Warriors need to get it together now that they're getting healthy. Steph Curry's back for a few games. The Warriors were able to even beat the Cleveland Cavaliers with their backups in. They sat Draymond Green. It was the second night of a back-to-back. They sat Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, basically their whole starting lineup, and they were still able to beat a full-strength Cavs team in Cleveland, which is surprising. So if the Warriors can do that without their starters, imagine what they could do if their starters still start building chemistry. They are the defending champs after all. You can't count out the defending champs until they're gone. You never count out the defending champs. This year you could count out the Rams after they're 5-10 because they were out of it, but as far as NBA, you can't count out the defending champs. The Lakers are kind of looking like hot garbage. Yeah, they did have a nice comeback last night against the Trailblazers. They were down 71-46 at halftime, and the Lakers were able to win the game in the fourth quarter and have a historic comeback. But regardless of that, the Lakers are 22-25 right now. They're 12th in the West, sitting outside of the playoffs. And I mentioned it before in other videos at my Leo Be the Lion show channel on YouTube that I believe that LeBron's trip to the finals in the bubble, in the NBA bubble, LeBron's trip to the finals, that will be his last trip to the finals. There's no way, as this Lakers roster is currently constructed, that they have the chemistry, nor do they have the durability for a deep playoff run. Anthony Davis, they just need to call him Mr. Glass because he's super fragile. He gets injured at the drop of a hat. In fact, he's injured right now with a hamstring. Guys like Patrick Beverley, yeah, they talk a lot of trash, but they're not really good production on the court. And then LeBron is getting older. He's 37 years old. He is starting to get nicked up by injuries here and there, and he can't put those 44 minutes a game like he would in the past when he was younger to put the team on his back. So when it comes down to it, the midseason awards, let's give the midseason awards out. The midseason MVP that I have right now for the NBA is Jason Tatum. He and Jaylen Brown are the 1-2 punch that Boston has that makes them so tough to beat. In the league right now, there's not really a big three or many big threes, but there are a lot of good duos. And I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are right up there with those duos. So Jason Tatum right now on 34 minutes a game, or 35 minutes a game, he's averaging 31.4 points per game, 8.5 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists, 1.1 steals, and 0.8 blocks per game. And the reason why I say that he's the MVP is that he has the Boston Celtics playing like a true number one seed. They are 31-15, and they really are playing like the one seed. They're dominant at home. They're really tough to beat at home, and they play consistently well on the road. There's a couple games coming up for Boston where they might have a little trouble. They did have a tough matchup against the Warriors, and that looked like a possible finals preview if the Warriors can get it together. So like I said, Jason Tatum, he's hard to beat in the Garden. He's already surpassed Larry Bird for most 50-point games with 5 in the Boston Celtics career. It was surprising when I found out that Larry Bird had only had 4 50-point games in his career, but he had like something like 30 or 40-point games, so it kind of made sense. Now, if I'm saying my midseason MVP is Jason Tatum, I'd say my midseason coach of the year is Joe Mazzulla for the Boston Celtics. He came in with maybe a month left to go before the season started, and with Ime Udoka being fired or being let go by the Boston Celtics, they said, Mazzulla, come in there and be the coach. He had never been a head coach. He was an assistant, and he's doing an excellent job with all these personalities that he has to deal with in Boston. He's doing an excellent job dealing with the media, dealing with the crowds, and doing a great job putting his team in position to win. So I think my coach of the year for this year is Mazzulla in Boston, and my midseason MVP so far is Jason Tatum. Now, after talking about round ball basketball, we're going to be getting into the NFL weekend that was the divisional round. It was so exciting. This, some would say, and I think it was just an ESPN marketing ploy, but I couldn't believe how much ESPN over this past week was saying that this is the best weekend in sports. This is the best weekend in sports. Yeah, it might be the best weekend in football. But there's other weekends in sports that I think would rival the NFL Divisional Round. For instance, I think Masters weekend in sports, because you have the NBA about to go to the playoffs. You have a lot of times the NFL draft right around that time. And you have the MLB starting up. So that's a pretty good weekend in sports. You have another weekend in sports where the NFL kicks off, where you have sports equinox, where you have basketball, hockey, NFL, and baseball all going on at once. I think that's a better weekend in sports than the NFL divisional playoff round. But I understand ESPN wants to, market as much as they can because they want you to watch it and consume their content. So I understand that. That's what they got to do. Oh, it's the best weekend in all sports. Not, it's the best weekend in football maybe. But actually, I like the regular season because, when teams are jockeying better, if the Dolphins were in, maybe it would be the best weekend in sports. But without further ado, let's look at the AFC divisional matchups that happened this week. The first game was the Bengals versus the Bills in Buffalo. The Bengals were able to win handily, 27-10, and they were able to win because the Bengals are a great overall team. They're able to drive down on their first possession in 6 plays in 77 yards and score on the Buffalo Bills defense like they weren't even out there. And now they were missing 3 starting O-linemen. So the Bengals were out 3 of their O-linemen. They were able to run the ball for over 100 yards, and they were able to give Joe Burrow enough protection to get the team open that they could score 27 points. Now the Bills, it's looking like now going forward, the Bills are going to be disappointingly stuck between 2 of their rivals, and they're going to be stuck below the Chiefs and the Bengals going forward. If the Bills cannot get past the Chiefs and the Bengals going forward, that's going to be the thorn in the side every year, because for the next decade, I could see Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes getting to the playoffs every year. And it will almost be like the years that Dan Marino was going to the playoffs. He always ran up against the Bills and Jim Kelly, or he would run up against teams like the Bengals, or he would run up against teams like the Steelers. Now, the Bengals defense is underrated. They have a player, a corner named Hill, and he was making play after play yesterday. He even made one of the plays, on Saturday, he even made one of the plays to help stop a touchdown. And the Bengals defense can get pressure on the quarterback. They were forcing, with their exotic blitz packages, they would make Josh Allen think that the blitz was coming from the right side of the line. And then almost simultaneously with the snap, that linebacker or that corner would shed off the line of scrimmage and basically go play his own. And then from the exact opposite side, a corner would come in and destroy the offensive line and get to Josh Allen. Josh Allen was bleeding yesterday, and he was sacked multiple times. He fumbled, and he threw the ball, and he caused turnovers. So the Bengals are moving on to the AFC Championship. It was a great team win, and I look forward to the Bengals to be a hard out next week. The next AFC game to decide who was going to be the Bengals' opponent in the AFC was the Jaguars versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs came in as the number 1 seed, so they had the bye week last week. And the Chiefs won, not handily, but they won 27-20 against the Jaguars. The Jags are going to be competitive going forward with Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence, and Travis Etienne, and their defense that's underrated. You're never going to catch the Jags slipping, and I expect the Jags to compete for the divisional title next year in the AFC South. There's a lot of good teams in the AFC, so look for the Jags to be competing in the years going forward, especially since they're so young. Mahomes, Teflon Patrick Mahomes, has a high ankle sprain. And according to Adam Schefter, it's a high ankle sprain and nothing more. So we won't look into that at all, will we? Not. We're definitely going to look into it. He's saying he has a high ankle sprain. He'll be ready. But as someone who's had ankle sprains, multiple ankle sprains, high ankle sprains are a lot of times worse than regular ankle sprains. So we'll see if, with the 8 days to prepare, if Patrick Mahomes, or 7 days to prepare, if Patrick Mahomes will be ready to play against the Bengals. The Chiefs are going to their 5th straight AFC Championship game. They've won 2 and lost 2. And they lost to the Patriots, and they've lost to the Bengals. And the interesting part about this is right now Joe Burrow is 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Joe Burrow, if he wins on Sunday against the Chiefs, he'll have the record for most wins against against Patrick Mahomes, and he'll replace Tom Brady, because right now Tom Brady has the most wins against Patrick Mahomes. So if you look at it, it's going to be the Bengals versus the Chiefs in Arrowhead on Sunday at 6:30 on CBS. I personally, I'll get into the AFC Championship game, but this is going to be a tough matchup. Bengals versus Chiefs. They're kind of they met before and played spoiler. The Bengals played spoiler last year, so I'm excited to see this matchup. Now let's get into the NFC divisional matchups. And let's start with the first one, and that was the Giants versus the Eagles. Now, full disclosure, I wanted the Giants to win more than anything because the Giants are kind of like my NFC team in terms of I just wanted the Giants to win because it felt like one of those years where the Giants were underrated and everybody was counting them out. But the Eagles are just a juggernaut on offense, and they're solid on defense, and they're really hard to stop with Jalen Hurts healthy. They can do anything. They can run pass option. They can read option. They can triple option. They can throw the ball deep. They can play action. They can do bootlegs. They can do screens and draws. They can, you name it, the playbook is wide open with Jalen Hurts at quarterback for the Eagles. I'm really impressed by what the Eagles have done this year, going 14-3 and being the last undefeated team in the league this year. So the Eagles were able to take care of business because it seems like the Giants forgot there was a game. The Eagles won 38-7, and the Eagles are looking to go to its 2nd Super Bowl in 5 years. They went last in 2017 with Nick Foles as their backup quarterback and were able to Philly special the Patriots into a loss and beat Tom Brady. And so I'll always appreciate and have a soft spot for Nick Foles and the Eagles in my heart because they were able to beat the Patriots and Tom Brady. If it wasn't for Nick Foles, the Eagles, and the Giants, Tom Brady would have 10 Super Bowls, and I just can't even fathom what that would be like. So now, after that, let's see if the Eagles can go to its 2nd Super Bowl in 5 years. Let's get into the Cowboys versus the 49ers. The 49ers were able to take care of business in a defensive game, mind you, 19-12, and beat the Cowboys. They held the Cowboys to a touchdown with a mixed extra point and 2 field goals. The game was tied 9-9 at halftime. Now, the 49ers are great, and it reminds me of the Bucs in that the Bucs of 2002, not the Bucs of 2018, of 2020 when Tom Brady had it. But it reminds me of the Bucs of 2002 in that they have Brad Johnson. They had Brad Johnson with almost unstoppable, almost historically good defense, and I really think that's what the 49ers have right now. Yeah, the 49ers have a lot of weapons, but I'm not sold on Brock Purdy. I'm not giving Brock Purdy credit. He's Mr. Irrelevant, and until he gets more relevant, I'm not going to trust him. He was the last pick in the draft. I'm just going to be a hater and say I don't trust Brock Purdy until he wins the Super Bowl. I think that the Cowboys had another huge letdown, and a 7-game losing streak continued in the divisional round. They've had the longest streak of getting to the playoffs without getting to the championship round, and that's a 7-straight streak, and it's lasted over 30 years since 1995 was the last time they went to the NFC Championship for the Cowboys. Now the 49ers are bringing a 10-game winning streak into Philly to face the Eagles, but the Phillies are one of the hottest teams right now, and they have a good coach in Nick Sirianni that puts Jalen Hurts and crew in the right positions to win, as well as the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius, so he puts Brock Purdy in positions to win. So it's going to be a battle of great defenses versus solid offenses. Let's see who can blink first. Let's see who can put up more points. And I think that the Eagles versus the 49ers in Philly, it's at 3:05 p.m. on Sunday in Philly. I think that place is going to be rocking for Philly to try to go to the Super Bowl. So now, after we talked about the AFC and NFC Divisional Round. I just want to give you my quick 5-pack of picks recap from 2 weeks ago. I never followed up with it, so my record going into that weekend was 45, 37, and 2. And I'll just really quickly give you the rundown. I picked TCU to win against Georgia. I was wrong about that. I'm not ashamed to admit I was wrong on that. So that was 0-1. I picked the Dolphins to win or to cover the 10.5 in the wild card weekend. They lost 34-31. So that brought me to 1-1 on my hashtag 5-pack of picks. Then I picked the Giants taking the points versus the Vikings in the wild card weekend, and the G-Men were able to win that game outright. So that brought me to 2-1. Then I picked the Cowboys laying the 3 points against the Bucks, and the Cowboys won, brought me to 3-1. So it came down to the Jags versus the Chargers for me to decide whether I could have a 4-1 weekend or a ho-hum 3-2 weekend. But the Jags plus the 1 were able to cover and beat the Chargers, so it brought my hashtag 5-pack of picks for last week to 4-1, and my record now stands at 49, 38, and 2, which is a 55% winning percentage. So holla at your boy Leo B the Lion. Check me out on YouTube at Leo B the Lion Show for the 5-pack of picks, and on Twitter and IG with my 5-pack of picks being released. You can always comment so we could debate, especially if you think I'm off my rocker with some of these picks, or if you really agree and you're trying to tail these picks for some to secure the bag. Let's see what happens. Now, after giving you that recap, I am 49, 38, and 2 in my hashtag 5-pack of picks. We're going to be going to the NFL Championship Weekend preview. I love this weekend. It gives me nostalgia for old weekends past, when my grandfather was still alive, God rest his soul, that we would watch the games together in the 90s, and he would always have the skinny on how the teams were. I remember vividly watching the Cowboys and the Niners in 1994 when they played in San Francisco, and Deion Sanders and Eric Davis were able to pick off the Troy Aikman multiple times, and Emmitt Smith wasn't himself, and the 49ers were able to beat them, and Steve Young went to the Super Bowl and destroyed the Chargers. Now, the AFC Championship game is going to be the Bengals versus the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium on Sunday at 6:30 p.m. The Bengals beat the Chiefs last year in Arrowhead to go to the Super Bowl, and the Bengals also beat the Chiefs in the regular season in Cincinnati. So like I mentioned earlier, the Bengals have a chance to beat the Chiefs in vaunted Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs' defense is a little banged up, so look for a shootout or Cincinnati to score early like they did against Buffalo. And let's see if the Chiefs can follow with their stacked and stout offense. Now, we're going to get into the NFC Championship game. It is the 49ers at the Eagles in Philly Sunday at 3:05 p.m. The 49ers are the surprise team because of Brock Purdy's season in his last 7 games as a starter in the regular season. When Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, he threw for 16 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions. So he's one of the players on a hot streak, and it's hard to account for a player on a hot streak, just like how when the Ravens won the Super Bowl with Ray Lewis, in their last run with Ray Lewis and Joe Flacco had one of the best playoff runs, throwing for 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. The 49ers defense and the Eagles offense will be a strength-for-strength matchup. I really think Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown, and their top offensive line going against the 49er defense with Fred Warner, Hufanga, and all those guys. That'll be a strength versus strength, so I'm really looking forward to that matchup. I'm also looking forward to the 49ers offense to see how prolific they can be against the Eagles defense. And I say that because the Eagles defensive line has been able to rush the passer with only 4 down linemen, and it's helped out their secondary where they're able to drop more guys into coverage. And anytime you can get pressure with just 4 players on the defensive line, that is an advantage for your team. See the Giants in 07 and 11, and see the Tampa 2 coverage of the 2002 Buccaneers with Simeon Rice, Booger McFarland, Warren Sapp, and them guys. If you can get pressure with 4, your defense becomes that much more vaunted. Now, I give the edge to the Eagles being at home, and I personally hope it is the Eagles and the Bengals in the Super Bowl, but probably it's going to be a rematch of a few years ago and be the 49ers versus the Chiefs. Let's see. I hope Jalen Hurts plays well, and I hope Joe Burrow plays well, because I would like to see that matchup in the Super Bowl. Now, I'm going to give you a quick 5-pack of picks for this week. I got 2 NFL picks, the 2 championship games, and then the 3 NBA Friday picks for you. So let's get into it. The first pick is the Chiefs laying 1 point against the Bengals. I believe Mahomes will get it done regardless of his high ankle sprain, and the Bengals will be a tough out. They may come down to who has the ball last. Like, if Mahomes has the ball last, they might win. If Burrow has the ball last, they might win. So give me the Chiefs laying the 1 point at home. I think the Chiefs could get it done with Harrison Butker kicking the last-second field goal. Then I got the Eagles laying the 2.5, or maybe buy it down to 2 against the 49ers. Hurts is a dual-threat quarterback. He can do it all. He really can throw the ball, too. He's accurate at throwing the ball, but he can run with his legs and runs for about 10 carries a game. I expect the Eagles' defensive line, like I mentioned earlier, to limit the rush ability of McCaffrey and the gadget plays of Deebo Samuel. And I believe that they can rush Brock Purdy and get under Purdy's skin and force him to make a mistake, which has been uncharacteristic these last 7 weeks. Then, into the NBA weekend, we have the Magic versus Heat on Friday night. I like the Magic over the Heat on Friday night. Yeah, it's in Miami, but usually the Magic play the Heat very well, and they almost swept the season series last year against the Heat. Then give me the Grizzlies over the Timberwolves. The Grizzlies are a top 3 seed in the West, and John, the Grizzlies will be ready to play. It's primetime Friday night. You can count on it. Friday night is NBA Friday night. So you can say, oh, man, what am I going to do on Friday night? You can watch the NBA. There's a lot of games on Friday. Then got Raptors versus the Warriors. Give me the Warriors to beat the Raptors. The Warriors are in San Fran playing, so the Warriors should be at full strength, and it's a Friday night game. They'll probably start all their starters. The Warriors are a much better team at home than they are on the road, and the Raptors should be no match for them, especially with Pascal Siakam and them guys. Now, so real quick, the recap of the picks that I have: the Chiefs laying the 1 against the Bengals, Eagles laying 2.5 or 2 against the 49ers, the Magic over the Heat on Friday night, the Grizzlies over the Timbies on Friday night, and the Warriors over the Raptors on Friday night. So good luck to y'all if y'all are tailing my 5-pack of picks. The last segment I want to do, we have about 3 minutes left. I want to get into my hashtag words of encouragement segment. This is very important to me, one of those segments that it not only helps, I hope helps you out there on the airwaves, but it helps me actually. It's kind of therapeutic for me to talk about. So my word of encouragement today is gratitude. You know, some people might be woe is me and might say, oh man, nothing's going for me. But it helps to change that attitude to have gratitude. Because to change your attitude to be grateful for being alive, life is so short, you know. J.K. Simmons, or, you know, the guy who does the Farmers Insurance commercial, he has this thing. He says, like, call your mom, call your dad, call everybody, you know, call your family. Tell them that you just want to just listen to them talk. Just be grateful, because if you're in a grateful mood, it's hard to be in a bad mood, in my experience. And then things could be worse. But, you know, you don't want to think like that. You just want to say, I'm just happy to be alive, and I'm grateful for having friends and family in my life. I might not make the most money. I might not, you know, be the tallest guy or be the coolest guy, but I'm grateful for my friends and family in my life, and I cherish those relationships. As Josh Cohen says on ESPN West Palm, he says every day above ground is a good day. And I really believe that. I really think every day above ground is a good day and a new day to change something that you want to change. So I think that gratitude for friendships and family is important, but more so I believe just having gratitude for the little things, like being alive, like, oh, I can walk today. Some people can't walk. Some people have an iron lung, or some people can't even breathe on their own. So I'm just happy to be able to do that. I'm thankful for the opportunity to have this radio show. This has been the Leo B. the Lion show. here recording live at Respectable Street from 5 to 6 every Monday. And you can see the recorded episodes on YouTube at Leo Be the Lion Show. Follow me at Leo Be the Lion Show on Twitter and IG. And I'll make sure to have a conversation with you if you message me. I'll make sure I always respond. This is Leo Be the Lion. Have a great week, everybody. And I'm signing out.